All right, so welcome to another deep dive. And today we're tackling something that, honestly, you might not think about all that much.
Okay.
The world of paper planners and really the whole stationery market here in the US.
Okay. Interesting.
But if you've ever thought about having your own line of planners or really getting into that world, it's a pretty dynamic market and there's a ton of growth happening.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, everyone I know, like, they love a good notebook or a nice planner.
Exactly. And we're not just talking like basic school
Right.
notebooks. I mean,
Yeah.
this goes all the way to like super high end, the kind of thing you'd see on an executive's
Oh,
desk.
for sure. Like those leather-bound ones with like the really thick paper.
Exactly, yeah. So today we're really going to zoom in on the manufacturing side of things. Like if you're a business and you're thinking, okay, I want to create my own line of planners, or maybe I want to do a wholesale order, or even start like a private label brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you choose the right manufacturing partner? Because there are so many out there.
That's a great point. Like, where do you even start?
Exactly. So we're diving deep today into the specifics of 5 major manufacturers, either based in the US or doing a lot of business here.
Okay.
We're going to look at Blue Sky, Rifle Paper Car, DesignWorks Ink, Doane Paper, and then Lion Paper products, which is interesting. They're actually based overseas.
Oh, okay. I'm curious to hear about that.
Yeah. So we're going to break down what each of these companies brings to the table, their strengths, their weaknesses, what they're really known for.
That sounds super helpful, especially if you're trying to like narrow it down and pick the best one for you.
Exactly. Think of this as your guide to navigating that whole decision-making process.
Gotcha.
So let's just dive in. Let's say you're starting from scratch. You're looking at a potential manufacturing partner. Like, what's the first thing you should be considering?
Well, the most fundamental thing I would say is really getting a grasp of their like core manufacturing capabilities. Like what can they actually produce and the range of products they offer.
Right, right.
Because that's going to determine, how much flexibility you have in terms of design and, the kind of product you end up with.
So like practically speaking, what are some things you'd be looking at?
Okay, well, first off, like binding options.
Okay.
That's huge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Can they do spiral bound? Which, spiral bound is often a good choice because it's cost effective and it lets the planner lay flat.
Right. Makes it easy to write in.
Exactly. But then, what about stitched binding?
Okay, yeah.
That's a little more traditional, but it can also lay flat, but it has a different feel.
Right, right.
And then, of course, if you want to go really high end, what about hardcover?
Yeah, hardcover always feels more like luxurious.
Absolutely. So those are some of the basic things you want to ask about right off the bat.
Yeah, and it's not just the pages themselves, right? Like, I feel like a lot of people, when they think about custom planners, they're thinking about customization, like the cover and, those extra details.
Oh, yeah. Customization is huge.
Yeah.
So you want to ask, like, can they do custom covers?
Right.
Like, with your branding on it?
Yeah.
What about special printing? Like, can they do embossing?
Ooh, embossing's nice.
Yeah. It adds, like, a tactile element.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes it feel fancier.
Exactly.
So those are all things you'd want to find out about their capabilities.
And then going back to the pages themselves, like what kind of paper do they offer?
Right, yeah. Because that's obviously key. Like, do they just do, like, the standard ruled lines?
Right.
Or can you get, like, grid paper,
Okay.
which is good for, more visual planning?
Yeah, or like people who like to sketch or draw.
Exactly. Or, some people just prefer blank pages, like total freedom.
Right.
And then there's the dot grid, which has gotten really popular.
Thank you, grid, yeah.
It's kind of like a happy medium.
Yeah, it's like it gives you some structure,
Yeah.
but not too much.
Exactly, exactly. And then, of course, the paper quality itself, like the thickness, the texture, that's all going to impact, the writing experience.
Absolutely. All right, so let's actually bring in some of the manufacturers we researched.
Okay.
So Blue Sky, for example.
Okay.
The information we have really highlights their focus on, high quality planners, notebooks, calendars.
Okay.
But the thing that really stands out is their emphasis on customization.
Oh, interesting.
So if you have a very specific vision, like you know exactly what you want your planner to look like, it seems like they might be a really good partner to actually bring that to life.
That's really helpful to know. So if you're not just going for like a basic off-the-shelf kind of planner,
Right.
they could be a good option.
Exactly.
Okay, what about some of the others?
Yeah, so Rifle Paper Co.
Yeah.
This is interesting. they've really built their brand around like what our sources call stunning illustrated designs and premium paper products.
Okay.
They're known for those really beautiful floral patterns, kind of whimsical, like artistic vibe.
Yeah, I've seen their stuff. It's really pretty.
Exactly. So if your brand, if you're going for that kind of aesthetic, like if that aligns with what you're doing,
Right.
partnering with them could be a way to kind of instantly tap into that market.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like you're already kind of leveraging their existing brand recognition.
Exactly. Okay, and then we've got DesignWorks Ink.
Okay.
Now, they seem to be kind of going for that like balance between practicality and style.
Okay.
Their notebooks, planners, writing accessories, they emphasize both, premium paper and like distinctive cover designs.
So kind of like a modern design conscious but still functional kind of vibe.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. And the interesting thing about them is our sources highlight that they also use a lot of eco-friendly materials, which is something that's becoming more and more important to consumers.
Right. Yeah. Sustainability is definitely a big factor these days.
Absolutely. We'll talk more about that in a bit.
Okay, cool.
Okay, what about Doane Paper? Have you heard of them?
Doane Paper rings a bell, but I'm not totally familiar.
So they're interesting because they've kind of carved out a specific niche.
Oh, okay.
They have this like unique paper design. It's called Grid Plus Lines.
Grid plus lines.
Yeah,
Well,
and it's specifically meant to appeal to like writers, engineers, designers.
oh, okay. So like people who need like really specific formatting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if that's your target market, like if your planner is going to be used by people in those professions,
Right.
then that specialized paper that Doane offers could be like a huge selling point.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's all about like understanding who you're trying to reach, right?
Exactly, yeah. And then the last one we've got is Lion Paper Products. Now, these guys, they're different because they're not based in the U.S.
Oh, right. You mentioned they were overseas.
Yeah, so their main operations are in China.
Okay.
They also have a factory in Cambodia.
Okay.
And they really focus on providing like wide selection of custom-made writing paper products, but like their main target is international clients.
Okay, so more of a global focus.
Exactly. And the thing that really stands out with them is the emphasis on competitive pricing.
Oh, so if cost is like a major factor,
Right.
they might be a good option.
Exactly. Especially if you're doing like really large volume orders.
Right.
But of course, you have to consider the added complexity of, working with an international partner, like shipping times, communication, all that.
Yeah, for sure. That adds another layer of, logistics to think about.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about like what these different companies can make.
Right.
But I feel like something we can't ignore these days is like sustainability.
Yes, absolutely. It's not just a trend anymore.
Right.
It's something that like so many consumers are really looking for. And businesses, they want to be aligned with those values as well.
Exactly. And you mentioned DesignWorks Ink was using eco-friendly materials, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So what are some other things to look for, like in terms of materials and like sustainable practices?
Right. So you definitely want to ask about recycled paper.
Okay.
That helps reduce reliance on virgin resources.
Right.
What about FSC certified paper?
FSC.
Yeah. So FSC certification basically means that the paper comes from like responsibly managed forests.
Oh, okay. So it's not like contributing to deforestation or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And even like the ink they use, that matters.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, are they using soy-based inks?
Okay.
Which are generally considered more sustainable than like the traditional petroleum-based inks.
Interesting. So it's really like every detail matters.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's not just the materials themselves.
Wait.
It's like, what about compliance with like environmental regulations?
Yeah, so you want to look for things like Ocotec certification, FSC certification. These basically give you that extra level of assurance that the products are being produced in a way that, meets certain standards.
Right. So you can feel good about, where it's coming from and how it's made.
Exactly. And if your brand, if sustainability is part of your brand identity, or if your target market really cares about these things,
Yeah.
then those certifications can be like a really big selling point.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about like what they make, what it's made of.
Right.
But now let's get into like the nitty-gritty of, if you're a business, what are some of the practical things you need to think about?
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about MOQs.
MOQs. Well,
Minimum order quantities.
right.
and production lead times.
Okay.
Because these can be like really big hurdles, especially for like newer businesses or smaller businesses.
Yeah, MOQs can be tough. Like some of those big manufacturers, they have really high minimum order requirements,
Right.
which can be like impossible if you're just starting out
Right.
or if you're doing like a smaller, more niche product.
Right.
Um, but the good news is there are some manufacturers who are more flexible
Okay.
and they're willing to do smaller batches.
Okay. So it really depends.
It really depends, yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to do your research and kind of shop around.
Yeah, and it's important to like have a sense of your own like projected sales volume
Oh, yeah, definitely.
before you even start talking to manufacturers, because you don't want to get stuck with like a ton of inventory that you can't sell.
Exactly. Or, be too small for them to even bother with.
Exactly.
So you have to find that sweet spot.
And then there's production lead time.
Oh, yeah, lead time. That can be a killer.
Right. So this is the amount of time, basically, from when you place your order to when you actually have those planners in your hands, ready to go.
Right, right.
And it can vary a lot depending on the manufacturer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you definitely want to ask them about their typical lead time, but also, like, their track record,
Yeah.
Like, can they actually meet deadlines, especially for, like, big orders?
Especially if you're, like, launching a product and you need it to be ready by a certain date.
Exactly.
You need to be able to rely on them.
Yeah, because any delays can just throw everything off.
Exactly. Yeah. And thinking about Lion Paper products with their operations being overseas, I mean, they probably have like a whole system for dealing with potentially longer lead times.
Right, yeah.
Just the logistics of international shipping.
Exactly.
So that's something to keep in mind if you're considering going that route.
For sure. Okay, so I feel like we've covered a lot of the functional stuff.
Right.
But let's circle back to, like, making these planners your own.
Yeah, yeah.
We talked about customization a bit earlier, but let's really dive into, like, customization and printing technology.
Yeah, because that's where you can like really make your brand stand out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So first you have to figure out, like, what level of customization are you actually looking for?
Okay.
Are you just trying to get your logo on an existing design?
Right.
Or do you want, like, full custom patterns?
Right.
Like the whole cover? Or even inside pages?
Yeah.
Like, how much control do you want?
And what about like those extra touches, that can really like elevate the look and feel of a planner?
Oh, yeah. The fancy stuff.
Yeah. So like foil stamping.
Ooh. Yeah, foil
So
stamping.
adds that like metallic sheen.
Very classy.
Right.
Yeah.
Debossing.
Debossing, okay.
Which is like that indentation, like the letters are pressed in.
Yeah, yeah.
It gives it that like tactile feel. And then UV printing, which can add like a glossy or a matte coating
Okay.
to certain elements.
But it's kind of like playing with textures.
Exactly. And those little details, they really can make a planner feel like way more premium.
For sure. And it's not just the planner itself.
Right.
Packaging.
Oh, yeah. Packaging is huge.
Like, that's the first thing people see.
It's that first impression.
Exactly. So you want to ask these manufacturers, like, do they offer custom boxes?
Right.
Custom sleeves?
Right.
Things that will really, like, reflect your brand.
Yeah. And going back to Blue Sky, the fact that they really emphasize personalization, it makes me think they probably have some really sophisticated customization and printing options.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Let's kind of like pull it all together.
Okay.
Like, what are the key takeaways?
All right, so big picture, if you're trying to choose a notebook planner manufacturer,
Right.
it comes down to a few really important things.
Okay.
First, you have to look at their manufacturing capabilities.
Right.
Can they actually produce the kind of planner you want, the binding styles, paper options, all that?
Right, right.
Second, you have to consider the quality of their materials
Yeah.
and their commitment to sustainability,
Absolutely.
because that's only becoming more important.
Then you need to really dig into their customization options.
Yeah.
Make sure they can actually bring your designs to life.
Of course, pricing and MOQs are always going to be a factor.
Right. You got to be able to afford it.
Exactly.
And then finally, understanding their lead times, their reliability, that's crucial for meeting your own deadlines and, keeping your customers happy.
Exactly. And I think, like, the overarching theme here is that you really want to find a manufacturer that you can trust.
Oh, yeah. A true partner.
Yeah, so someone who's experienced, who's reliable, who can help you create a high-quality product that will, build your brand and help you succeed in this market.
And speaking of the market, it was really interesting looking at all our sources. There were some clear trends emerging.
Oh, like what?
Like the demand for personalized planners is just like
Oh,
skyrocketing.
yeah.
People want something unique.
Right.
The preference for eco-friendly materials is also growing.
Makes sense.
And, premium, well-designed products are still hugely popular.
There's definitely room for, like, innovation.
Oh, yeah. Our sources actually use the phrase countless opportunities for innovation and personalization.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
Yeah, but it really depends on choosing the right manufacturing partner, someone who can keep up with those changing demands.
That's a good point. So I guess, like, the big question for anyone listening who's thinking about this is, like,
Yeah.
which of these factors is most important to you?
Yeah, what are your priorities?
Right. Like, is it the flexibility of the manufacturing?
Right.
Do you need them to be able to do, like, a wide range of products?
Or is it sustainability?
Yeah.
Like that's your non-negotiable.
Or are you all about customization?
Yeah, you need like full creative control.
Exactly. Or maybe it's all about, like, getting the best price.
Right, yeah, the economics of it.
So it's really about figuring out what matters most to you and your business.
Because ultimately that decision, like who you partner with, it's going to shape your ability to innovate and like really meet the needs of customers who are, looking for both a practical tool
Yeah.
and something that reflects their own personal style.
Right, because at the end of the day, these planners are like an extension of people's personalities.
Yeah, exactly. And as the market keeps changing, it's going to be more and more important to have that right partner by your side.
I agree.
All right, well, thanks for taking the time to deep dive with us.
Yeah, this was really insightful.
And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.